I guess today I'm going to go through kind of what is going to be expected for the exam. And so we'll look at those. The exam's going to be over several days. So, but once you start the exam, you'll have 3 hours to complete it. So you got plenty of time. It's really not any longer than any other exams. And so there is an example of exam one that you have already. So it's going to be similar, a little bit different than that in some ways, is that we're looking more at concepts this time rather than just trying to just plug in numbers into a formula, just like homework assignments. So this is a little bit different. And a lot of it is, you can find it in the textbook, the study to find out what these things are. So the exam covers pretty much what we had looked at, the first several chapters. The last thing we will be looking at, of course, is the methods for choosing best set of predictors, and best subset, forward, reverse methods of doing predictors. We're not going to do ridge regression or lasso in there, or R squared, and some of those other methods that we're doing. So yeah, we're going to do R squared. R squared is a regular one to do that. We're just not going to do the ones where it is the AIC, BIC, and some of those models. But so everything up until then. So one of the things is that we want to look at is, of course, just the what we have is the definition of statistical learning. So what is statistical learning? And all of the different names for statistical learning. And so you can find that anywhere, but really, what is statistical learning? How is it different or similar to machine learning and other different types of learning that we have been looking at? Okay, because some things are based on statistical and probabilities and things like that, and some are not, and everything like that. So take a look at that, and there are a number of ways to come and look at how we do that. And so, and this would be all pretty much from the first chapter of the and the second chapter of the textbook. The other thing you need to look at is when we start talking about variables, and we have different categories of variables and for the types of the variables. And so you have pretty much the main types we have is quantitative or qualitative variables. So what does it mean to be a quantitative variable? How does a quantitative variable differ from a qualitative variable? Again, this is just from the first homework. And so be able to describe, be able to recognize what a quantitative variable is in a, let's say, a regression model or a qualitative, and how are they different from each other? And there may be some learning algorithms and stuff like that, where you're looking at both quantitative and qualitative variables, right? So sometimes your data sets will have both quantitative, qualitative variables. Can you identify which ones are qualitative, which are quantitative? It would be supervised versus unsupervised learning. So what's the difference between a supervised learning? What is the difference of that and an unsupervised learning? This one is unsupervised. What are the variables used? What are the outputs? What is the inputs? So we look at all of those types of things, and you can look at that for the service supervised and unsupervised learning. So And we've looked at enough of these examples to know what are you going to do those. Parametric and non-parametric methods. So what is the difference between a parametric and a non-parametric method? And we know that parametric methods, right, usually have some kind of a function associated with them. And non-parametric methods don't necessarily have or don't have a function associated with them. And so within those different methods, which methods are best for the problem in hand? So if you're looking at a problem, would you better use a parametric or a non-parametric method to solve some problem that we're looking at? Or if we're trying to do inference or, or something else in there, then what would we need those for? Another one is prediction versus interpretability. So if you're going to interpret something or you're going to predict something, those are two different things, right? So you're looking at the data, you can interpret the data and tell us what the data tells you about the system you are investigating. And you can interpret that in different ways. And of course, you want to get the correct interpretation of what is going on. And then in prediction is a little bit different than interpretation. So prediction is you're looking at how you can explain what the trend is going to be in the future at some point in time. So the differences of those are important to look at. Another thing is flexibility versus rigid, right? So you can look at something and say, well, how flexible is that learning algorithm? Or how rigid is that learning algorithm? And what are the scenarios where you want something which is more flexible? What are the scenarios where you want to use something which is more rigid? And of course, flexibility and rigid and stuff, and depending what you have, that also is very similar to, is not very similar, but I mean, it does affect whether you're going to be overfitting or underfitting. So, F and G, you can tie these two together and say what scenarios are you want something more flexible or rigid, and what scenarios are you going to use a flexibility rigid one given that you're trying to avoid either overfitting or underfitting. Okay, so if you give an example of a particular function or a particular set of data and stuff like that, what would you use to look at the set of data? So, and again, we've seen many examples of that in the textbook and in PowerPoint slides about, a function which is more flexible or a function which is less flexible. And then we're looking at, again, the different, ways that we can assess that, okay? And again, with these two, we're looking at, again, H would be the most important of everything we looked at, is assessing the model accuracy. So when assessing the model accuracy, then you're looking at what? What are the differences between the training versus the test mean squared error, right? And so that is the way you assess model accuracy. And with that whole process, you're trying to determine that you're going to minimize overfitting or underfitting. And so for those. And again, that has to do with what is the bias variance trade-off, okay? So what are examples of the bias variance trade-off? How do they look? How are they different? Things are different. And then what we have is classification versus regression. And again, what is the difference between something which is classification? What is something that is regression? And then, and we have actually the regression we looked at so far has been what? Linear and logistic regression. So what is the difference between linear regression? What is the difference in logistic regression? Okay. And so one thing about logistic regression is we get, when we have two classes, we can get different probabilities of those two classes in logistic regression. We can do some prediction or stuff with logistic regression. It's not really a classifier because you're not really classifying into different things. You're just looking at basically two different parameters or different classes, two different classes with the logistic regression. You're either A or B, and you're just giving a number for A or B, and you're actually not classifying into being A or being B. So that's why the logistic regression is not really a classifier, but actually there is a way to use it as a classifier. So if you want to use it as a classifier, all you have to do is just put a threshold and say a threshold above a certain probability will tell you whether you're on one class or another class if you don't know the classes. So look at the ways that you can use logistic regression to be a classifier. Okay, that's also in the textbook. So even though logistic regression is not a classifier, there are ways to actually use it as a tool for a classifier. Okay, and so yeah, and we looked at the tools of it for to be classifiers essentially when we were looking at the different sigmoid functions and those functions like that, which can tell you, give you a probability whether you're going to be of one type or the other type. And also with regression, methods for quality of fit. So what are the different tools we use in regression to get a good quality of fit for our to our function, right? And multivariate regression. And so when we look at multivariate regression, how does that work when we're using 3 predictors, 4 predictors or so? And so you have different variables in different dimensions of regression. And then look at the different methods for choosing the best set of predictors. So for the best set of predictors, we're looking at choosing the best set of those. Okay, so that's all is basically in the first 2 chapters or so. We're looking at that, and then the next one we'll go on is to classification. And so when we look at classification, somebody have a question? Okay, so classification, we can look at a Bayes classifier, right? That's what we had looked at before. At the KNN classifier, so become familiar with the KNN. Maybe I should give a little example of a KNN here right now. Let's see if I can do something with that. So for the KNN, usually instead of doing the training, we assume something's already trained. And so let's say we've trained something. And of course, training, if you do the nearest neighbor, this is going to be, itself. And this is going to be itself, right? And of course, these will be on a grid, so you know exactly how far apart they are. Let's do it. Let me do one there. Okay, so if we look at the nearest neighbors, what we do is we just block this off and say, what's the nearest neighbor, the one nearest neighbor to this one? The one nearest neighbor to this one is also a circle. So that means you have, that's true for this. For this one here, the closest is a circle, right? So that means, so this one is closest to this one. And I didn't write it real carefully, but so nearest one to that is true. The nearest ones to this one may be true. The nearest for this one is false. The nearest for this one is false. The nearest to this one is false. The nearest to this one is false, right? So you have a true here to here. And this one, you have a true here to here. If we say that's the closest, this is going to be false. This is going to be false for each one of these. And again, false. And you do them for each one. So just put your finger on that one, put your finger on that one, put your finger on that one, that one, that one, and that one. And you'll find how many are correct or not correct. Okay? And so that will tell you if for your, nearest neighbor, single nearest neighbor, and you get a probability there. All right? So you have the number of observations which are correct and the number of observations which are incorrect, and that will give you the probability of being correct and the probability of not being correct, which would add up to 1. Okay? And the 3 nearest ones, when you're doing that, you look at this one and you see what are the 3 nearest ones to this. It's going to be probably this one, and this one. So if you look at the 3 nearest ones to this, basically this is going to be false, right? So this is not going to be correct. So when you do your test on that, or your validation, that one's going to be not correct. This one's going to be error 2, right? Your nearest ones is you have 2 out of the 3. So that will be incorrect. So you have now 2 incorrects. This one, let's say the nearest 2 are these 2. This one will be incorrect. This one, you have 1, 2, 3. This one will be incorrect. And this one obviously is going to be incorrect. This one, 1, 2, 3 are the closest. That's incorrect. Okay? So if you did your training and your training ended up like this, I mean, it's not going to be very accurate, right? Because these are there. But usually, if I give you something, you'll have another one in here, and maybe, another one in here, and another one, closer or something. So yeah, you can get a group here and group here and another group here, so it's a little bit easier. But that's the idea of doing the KNN. There will be some on LDA and QDA, but you're not going to have to, actually go through there and make your own LDA or QDA classifier. It's just looking at that and looking at this scenario. Would you use an LDA, or another scenario, would you use a QDA for those, and just basic questions on those and doing those. So that's what we have for that. And then we have interpreting results. And so given a plot of output data, give an interpretation of the results. So the plot may come from one of the labs that you've done. And the whole point of all the labs is, is giving an exercise on the correct way to actually do statistical learning and find out, what happens when you overfit, what happens when you underfit, which is more accurate. Okay, so not too much on that, because most of the early labs were working a lot more on doing the basic things of learning R. But once we get a little bit more familiar with R, then we can do a lot more with the interpreting the results and the statistical learning itself. But so review what you get out of the labs, and we can look at that. Okay, so it's not going to be a real lot. The exams coming up later are going to, of course, have the second midterm is going to have a little bit more deep knowledge of doing things. I mean, for the first several chapters, we're just getting hold of the basic concepts, and now once we got the basic concepts, we'll be doing a little bit more detail on doing this. So that's kind of the idea of the exam, and typically, as I said, I just give you a window, and then you can just go through and mark those off. You have to actually have to write. You just can't say this is true or this is false. If I have something which is true or false, you're just going to have to write the reason why. Enter the reason why you think this is going to be true or this is going to be false. So,
Professor, I have
any questions for this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Will you be uploading the previous review that you did before it was a couple of weeks ago?
Was that done online?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you?
I got to do that because that was right before I left town. So,
is there a set of answers for the review exam that we can take a look at, or can you go over some questions that I have on some of those?
On the review exams?
Yes.
I got the exams there, but I don't have the answers to them.
Just the questions.
Or just the questions?
You did not provide the answers.
Yeah, you did only the questions. So I'll see if I got one with the answers on it.
Okay.
Because then that will.
Sir, what is the format of exam? Like, is it proctored or how is the exam?
Oh, is it proctored by a human or is it going to be?
Like, how the format of exam? Like, is it you'll be posting on Canvas and we can take it anytime, or how is it? Like lockdown browser or how?
It'll be posted on Canvas.
Okay.
And then it will be over a period of time, so you can take it when you can take it whenever you want to within the couple of days that it's open. Okay, and then once you start, you have 3 hours, or I don't know how long you have, usually about that, or maybe an hour and a half or so to complete it. But then you have to submit usually the hard copy. It depends on if I get it all written in or not, because it's been done several ways and several different times. But it's usually you have a part where you just actually type in your answers in that, because this is just second time we've been doing this online.
How do you know that? How do we know? Once we start, it would be ending in 3 hours.
Once you start, well, what are you asking? How do you know?
Will you show any timer 2 hours, 30 minutes left like that?
Oh, automatically, yeah. It automatically has a timer on there.
Okay.
So it tells you exactly how much time you have.
Okay. Is there any sets for the exam, or all for everyone the exam would be same, Professor?
It should be already given with the exam what you need.
Is the exam same for everyone, or else is there any sets for the question paper?
Oh, are they different for each person?
Sets. Is every person in the class gets the same paper, or else do we have any sets of question paper?
Oh, they all get different ones.
Okay.
They're all random.
Okay.
Professor?
Because that keeps everybody from sending back the same answer. which is
Okay.
academic dishonesty.
Like, is it open book, Professor?
It is. You can use your notes,
Okay.
right? But it's going to be on lockdown browser, so you can't go.
Like, will it take our screen recording or something like that?
Yeah, the lockdown browser keeps you from
Okay, opening all the tabs. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Yeah, okay.
going anywhere on
Can
that.
we use the textbook?
Hmm?
Can we use the textbook?
Yeah, I think.
Professor, do we need video for that? Video.
A video for.
Exam, like lockdown browser.
Yeah, I'm going to, because probably have to go back, talk to the department chair again, what they.
Because when we take open book exam, like when we use our notes, normally it gives us red flag, right? When we move our movements, when there is video.
Yeah.
So I think video is not possible because it kicks us out when we are using some books or notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to talk to the department chair and find out exactly the way to do this. I mean, the last meeting we had, they were talking about proctorial. Is this the first one anybody's had exam?
Yeah, it is for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I've had an exam this semester.
Yeah, how do they do that?
We use proctorial.
Proctorial, yeah, that's what they.
We used Zoom. We turned the video cameras on for Zoom, and it was open notes.
Uh-huh.
And so we each got a separate exam,
Right.
and
Sir, if we use like we cannot make it open book, right? Because it kicks us whenever we move out of the screen. Like even if we turn left or right, it shows us red flag.
Yeah, it does that, and but the red flag doesn't really mean anything's wrong. You have to kind of interpret whether that is.
Like even in
Available.
other subject, like we cannot write on paper or something when there is proctorio.
Yeah.
It became an issue for us.
Will this lockdown browser give you some kind of problem if you attempt to look at the class notes in PDF form on your computer? I've never taken a lockdown style exam before, so I don't know what triggers anything.
Yeah, I've used the lockdown browser before. I haven't used the proctorial, and the lockdown browser didn't seem to create problems. But the problem is that because if you're going to use your browser to
open the PDF.
Open the PDF, then that's it's going to prevent you from because lockdown browser you're only looking at what the exam is. So,
I'll just throw this out there. In the one exam that I had in another class that was conducted kind of similar to this, is there was a component that was done in Canvas as kind of like an in-class version where the professor served as a monitor or whatever, and it was like a multiple choice style kind of format, and then there was a take-home component that we just did on our own later as just another alternative to some of this stuff. So I don't know.
Right.
So, Professor, we had an exam using proctorial, but that exam was only multiple choices and essay questions and true or false. But in our exam, we might draw something, or we might use the calculator, or even we might write on notes, and then we will take a screenshot, and then we will upload it. It will be hard if we use Proctorial, because it will lock everything and we cannot upload anything.
Yeah. So what I've done before, which actually does that, is that, you take, for this class, it's harder than some other classes. I mean, I've had other classes which are a lot easier to do because then there's not such things as interpreting things or not. But I think I could do it how I done it before, which would be that was using lockdown browser. So I could do it with open notes, but you'd have to open notes first. Don't take them off on the computer. So if I do the open notes and then I use the lockdown browser, what the lockdown browser would keep you from browsing on the internet, and you're just going to have to, do some notes of yours for some of these things, and use those. And so what would happen is you just enter the answers in on the exam. Some of them may be multiple choice, some of them are not. And then you can put in your explanation for that.
Is there a way for you to maybe make the textbook accessible in the lockdown browser, and that would be kind of like the notes that are common to all of us that we can use, or something that would allow you to use the lockdown browser, but also allow us access to some kind of notes?
Doesn't the lockdown browser just lock down the browser? You should still have access to your local machine.
But I'm just hearing that it triggers some kind of flag or something when you try to open a PDF in a browser, though.
Oh,
Any other browser?
well, when you open the PDF on your computer, you're not opening it in a browser.
I have to.
Oh,
I don't have Adobe on my machine. I can only open in Chrome or...
okay, I understand.
You can upload Adobe.
I mean...
the reader.
I'm just going to take notes on a piece of paper, and if somebody wants to flag me, then they can come check my notes or something. I've never taken an exam like this. I'm not going to cheat on that.
Yeah.
Whatever you do is going to be fine, I guess.
Well, nobody at this point of time, these courses aren't designed to be online. And since they're not designed to be online, a lot of people don't even know how to give these.
Is there a way you could set up like a trial test or a trial like practice test where we could go in and answer a single question?
Yeah, I could probably do that and get
Okay.
that ready, done. Again, there's no really, rush to do this. If I get it together and get the exam there, then we'll try to determine how to, go about doing this. So it may, it depends on if we want to have the exam Thursday or Friday or something and through the weekend. Or not through the weekend. Again, I could keep it open for several days to do that, but that gives a little time to try to do a test first. And if we get the test, something that'll work on the test to see how it works, then I can do it with the real.
I personally think that having the exam open for a longer period of time is a bigger issue than just allowing people to use the internet to ask questions. I mean, if you have the exam open for like several days,
Yeah,
that
that's
to
not
me,
gonna work.
that to me is like a bigger incentive for people to like talk behind the scenes than it is for me to Google like what is QDA or what, whatever. So that's just my 2 cents. So
Yeah.
but my last question, Professor, is what do you know what time the exam will become available in Canvas? Will it become online at like 4 p.m. Thursday, or do you know when it'll start?
I could do it at 4 p.m. on Thursday or 4 p.m. on Friday or Thursday's 2 days from now, but so the thing is with this class, this is not a synchronous class. It's completely asynchronous.
Yeah.
And so that's because we have people,
Professor, I got a question.
when we first started this, we just emailed people the exams. There are different versions of them and went around there and randomly emailed them to everybody and says, okay, you got this, you got to return it within, when you open the email. And do that, you're assigned this and you got, a couple of hours to complete it and send it back.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
And that's the way it had been done that way. I could go back to do it that way. So I just randomly go out and give everybody or sometimes I randomly go and give them out and have the lockdown browser along with it. And the lockdown browser is okay. I mean, you can have all your notes with you.
The hard notes, though, based on what I'm hearing.
So that way has worked. And then you just submit. There's a link. You have to submit them. Problem with submitting them is you either have to scan them. So if you have a scanner to scan them, you can scan.
Professor, I have a question at that point. You mentioned you mentioned we have to type our answers in the browser, or just like is it okay to just write down our answer and just scan them and just upload them? Because sometimes it takes me too long to type the answer, especially what is in when it comes to explanation.
Well, they don't have. What you need to do is what usually have it done is you could put the answer in there, and then you can have the there's one where you did the short answer. Well, the last one I did with this, there was one, and a lot of those were, I mean, you can write in, I think, as much as you want. If I have a question where I have a field to write in, I mean, you can type it all in there. And that way it would be completely online.
Yeah, but what was my question? Is it okay if I just write them down and just scan my answers and just upload them instead of just typing them? Will that be okay?
Yeah, I could do it with problem is that Canvas is for elementary schools. It is. That's what it's
I
designed
believe
for.
you.
Tell when you look at it. I mean, you really cannot do much with Canvas. It's pretty much, multiple choice and not much else. So, I mean, it's worked for different times. So I think I've got something that worked for for last semester. So I may just do what I did last semester, which again was first time. So it seems like everybody has kind of done it in the different ways that I've done it, or had done it, and so I think I did have lockdown browsers, and then
Hi, Professor. In the exam, if we get problems, how we should do? Like we should solve in the paper and we should upload it. Otherwise, we need to solve in the machine itself.
Before, what it would be is you would let's see, one way I did it, you would just write in the answer, and then all the work for the answer was uploaded.
Actually,
Or
Professor,
you may have had multiple choices for answers, and you pick the correct answer. But that was if we had a multiple choice in numerical things. You can pick the numerical value, and then with the numerical value, you had to have all your work submitted.
if you don't mind, Professor, can you please add a trial test? It's just a small request from my end because it's new to us, so it will be helpful for us.
What, to have it run through first?
Yeah, it's just a trial test. Like just
Yeah, I'll have to do a trial test, and then
yeah, Professor, because it's all new for us, so it will be helpful for us to
Yeah.
just go before going through an exam.
right.
Yeah.
We've tried different things, and different things have not, been the best. But yeah.
Professor, one more thing. How many questions we can expect in the exam, like descriptive and explanation questions and problems?
Well, I mean, I did post one exam already, right? Let me go look for that exam. I'll go and do it, and so let's look at okay.
Professor, if you are sharing something like we can't see, I can able to see just the syllabus of the topics.
Well, there it is. So this
Yeah,
was an exam. When was
okay,
this?
Professor.
2018. So it was a little bit different. So this is what this one should be available. So these are more where you can just do this and you can estimate the probability. Again, these were more numerical. Here you have to. See, now for something like this, you would have to submit that because this is, drawing the.
So, Professor, on the first question,
Yeah.
is that, are we able to solve that without using a calculator?
No, you have to use a calculator for the first one.
Okay.
Because the second one you don't have to because you can divide both sides by the exponent of that and do that. This one you just have to.
So,
So you're allowed to have calculators, yeah.
So, Professor, if we got our upcoming exam same as the example of this exam, it will be hard for us to type all the answers and to do all the calculate the.
Yeah, so that's why when I did these you did you just put in the answer, and then all the work you uploaded all the work.
So it will be available to upload a document through a quiz through a locked browser. Because uploading only for assignments, we can upload things.
It should. I'll look at the. There was one of my 291 class. I had the locked browser, and then they were able to.
Yeah, my question is: it will be there a function to upload a file through the same?
What was on the locked browser was the initial thing where you're putting in the answers. So it's locked when you do the answers, right? So when you're actually doing the work and putting the answers, that's through the locked browser. Once you're done with the answers, the work is not through a locked browser.
Can you go to question 5 on this exam?
Yeah, on this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, I got to do that one. Or do I do the next? Trying to get this to. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5.
So this one, the lines or the slopes where the male and female intersect.
Yeah.
How would you answer that first question there?
For fixed value IQ and GPA, males earn more on average than females, true or false? So what you're looking at, again, this is one of the textbook questions stuff, but see, for fixed value, and the way they worded that in there, I think is for any value, IQ and males earn more on average than females. So in those cases, it may be true or false, but that's for any value given IQ and GPA. Is it always true that males earn more on average than females? So there may be a value in either IQ or GPA, which makes that false, right? Or else it could be always true. Yeah. So you look at those values and see, because all you're doing is you have that indicator function in there. What are the values that males or females can earn? So when we look at this type of problem or these problems in the homework and the textbook, when they look at those, then this is kind of interpreting whether or not, these are that. And I don't ask this question anymore because of that, because it's a little bit strange on how to interpret those or not on that one. And then, of course, these down here are the easier ones. For fixed value QPA, females or the males, provided that the GPA is high enough. So that's a little bit, and it depends on the GPA. But yeah, I'm not likely to ask this one anyway,
Okay, thank you.
because I haven't in recently, because it's just always confusing.
And then
This
for
one is, I'm not going to ask because this one has to do with lasso, ridge regression.
for question 4, number H.
Back here,
Yes, sir.
4. Yeah.
Would you just take the natural log of that, and can you do linear regression on that if you take the natural log?
Yeah, that's been done for many, many, many decades.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't have to ask that. But yeah, I think in one of the lectures I had mentioned that if you take the log of that, then it's linear, right? And a lot of times you use those techniques where it's just a transform from one to the other. So something which is exponential, in this case, you make it linear. And so then you do linear. And that was very popular, before doing, having to actually do more complicated models, because generally in business and things like that, when you have exponential curves or curves which are not straight, so what you do is, you take the log of that, and then it becomes a linear function, and then you fit that to the log of the data. So you take the log of all the data and fit that as a straight line, and then once you've got that, then you take the exponential of that. Once you do the exponential of that, you've got a nice curve, which matches the actual data that way. So there's a lot of different types of transforms you can use to get that. So you have to remember, for a long, long time, the only thing you could really do was linear regression. And the way to do linear regression when your line wasn't linear was to do something like this. Yeah, again, this was related regression and lasso. And so, but again, this would have been a in-class exam, not a. This is the second exam, but this is stuff that we're not looking at. So this would be the chapter we're going into. I may have some. And again, these are all just, we're not quite into AIC, BIC, or support vector machines, or decision trees. So those all be in the second half. Let's see if I can, let me move this here, and let me. See if I have a. Oh, here we go. Huh. I'll let you look at this for a little bit. So this is an actual one that was done 2020. So this would have been, this one was not, this one was online. Okay, and so the day everybody took this exam was when we got kicked out of the classroom. So this was a regular in-class exam. And you notice that, this is just looking at our matrix here, right? And you're looking at all the different values in there. So that was pretty straightforward. Again, accuracy metric and stuff, precision, right? So that was all the homework that we looked at. This is different one of these, which ones would tend to underfit or overfit. Right, so this is more flexible, this is least flexible. So again, this was an in-class thing, and so again with flexibility. So where you have no noise, and how does it work with no noise and with noise? This is something where you write in, validation approach, decay-fold cross-validation, LOOCV, right? All of those things like that would be in the exam. Here we have QDA, LDA. This is, again, when you're looking at the 3 nearest neighbors. Okay, so it'll look something like this, and then you can look at here and see for each point what the nearest neighbors are. And so they're on a grid, so you know what all of those are. This is our logistic regression. Down here. Where you can get these. So this one you kind of need a calculator for. This one you don't, because you can just take the log of everything right here, natural log on that side, because this is going to be 0, taking the log on that side, and then now you just get regular number of values in there.
Did you say we need a calculator? We just use RStudio.
Okay, so that's, again, none of these have been the online versions.
When you say we need a calculator, can we just use R?
Can you use R?
Yeah, instead of a calculator.
If you want to use R for it.
Okay.
Not going to be much difference to doing that, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of calculating on this.
Okay.
This is another. Oh, this is beyond what we're doing. Dendrograms and everything.
Sir, what happens if the 3 hours got extended?
If what is extended?
Yeah, the time of 3 hours get expired. What should we do?
Well, it'll tell you if you're getting close. Usually there should be plenty of time. These are regular.
There are a lot of problems which takes time in our assignments. If we get such kind of problems in the exam, it takes a lot of time to solve.
Yeah, I think. Well, the only thing you have to do is email.
Will mail you the answer sheet. Like if we are running out of time, will it affect any marks? Such kind.
Well, you probably get a little bit. I mean, you'll get marks, but you'll get partial marks. There.
What if we mail immediately, like around 5 to 10 minutes lately to you?
Yeah, I don't mind 5 to 10 minutes late. Yeah.
Okay.
Not going to be a.
Okay, Professor.
But usually how much?
Okay.
Always tell how much time you have to do that.
Okay. Because we're taking photos sometimes when our phone gets hang, if we write for 10 papers like that,
Yeah.
the phone gets hang or struck, it takes time at the end.
Let's see if I've got. I think I might be able to. Well, I'm not showing this screen here, but I'm going to try to see if I have. Looking for. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, so this was how we did it last year. So we'll probably do it similar to this. Except this one, I don't know if I have the browser on it. But again, these are the things. So this exam has 8 questions for 170 points. You have 3 hours to complete the exam. You are allowed 1 attempt. The exam will be available from 3:30 p.m. Saturday, October 24th to 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, October 27th. This time it's not going to be available that long because of the problems with that at that time. So it'll be still the same day on doing that. So since all the questions are in a single file, it'll be displayed as a single question of 1 point. Okay. So after you've completed the exam, you must upload all your work. The link can be found on the same page as the exam. Must be uploaded within the 3-hour limit or you'll not be able to get any credit. And so the exam's open book, open notes to be completed without the help of others. So we had a lockdown browser on the exams after this one, so there will probably be. And so, oh, this one. Yeah, this one was just a download. Your version of the exam, and you did the exam.
This will work for us, Professor. We can download it and answer it and upload it again.
What about this one?
Yeah, if we can do this and download the PDF and then answer on the paper sheet and scan it and upload it to the same page, it will be great help for us.
Yeah, that was the one version that we did with that. Let me see what the other one was. I think. See, the final had the lockdown browser, so that worked also. So for this one, okay, so this one was yeah. So here we have for this one, so this is the question, right? So you want to predict percentage based on whether they prefer product A or B. We'll do this by creating decision tree and minimizing the squared error. So what you do with this, you put in what the ages are in. So fraction or decimal with 4 decimal places. And as you know, thing about Canvas, it does almost exact matching. I mean, you can kind of set it to be a little bit different there. So you do that in there. And then the second decision tree, you have all the values there. And then here's another question, which is just true or false. Okay. Ridge regression lasso, another true and false. Multiple choice, BIC, same amounts. And then all your work on that and explanations of that you have to do. And then here you can write in, explain and compare the different methods. So you can just type it in. So most of them are going to be type it in. So this is, and this is a ridge regression, and I was able to do that. So maybe look more like this, where you can get, put in the different values for that. And then you submit the quiz in there, and then you have to upload all your work with it in there. And so this worked fine with the lockdown browser, I think. And then I'll go back and so the final exam. Now this is with the lockdown browser. And it's the same thing. So notice that since it's the final, it has the same similar question as what was there. And so the final was what was that here? Then you get question 2. They look similar. Question 3. Again, these are all similar. So it's going to be more like this. I think this one kind of worked. This is a dendrogram, and you have to, dendrogram, of course, looks like a tree structure, kind of, and you have to create a dendrogram, which is a tree type structure. So, of course, it's important to upload the hard copy of what you make out of that. And okay, so that's pretty much what the final is. And then when you get to the end, you submit it, and then after you submit it, you upload your work. Okay. So this will probably be the way to do it. So there's no problems with the lockdown browser. It just keeps you from, browsing different things.
So can we go back for the question 1 if we skip it and we went to the...
Oh, you can go back, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So you can all, while you're doing it, you don't, so when you go to next, you can go to previous. So if I go next, so it goes next, there it goes. I got the point there. Let's see if this will go. Then I gotta go back. Previous. So we're back to question 8. Previous again, we should go back to question 7. Here's question 7. Okay, so you can go back and forth all you want until everything's right. And then you can sit here and you can write everything in there and stuff. And if there's, and then show all your work and send in your work. So I think so far this is probably the best way to do it. That way you can do everything. So, any questions? I think after all this, I think this is probably the way to do it. So then you can type anything in there. And if it has something that, equations or something like that, which you can't really type in, and which, it has a very elementary, if anybody knows how to do LaTeX, it has a very elementary LaTeX, in this. And so, but if most of you don't know LaTeX, then it's easier just to put there and equations and stuff on your hard copy, all your work that has to be, then just show all the equations if you have equations and stuff on your hard copy, all your work that has to be submitted, which is okay. Any more questions from anybody?
Would you maybe just, would it be possible for you to maybe send an email on Thursday whenever the exam becomes available, or like give us some indication on Thursday when we can?
Yeah,
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right away.
It's available. I think everybody automatically gets an email.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
So on Canvas, as soon as I make it available, it'll send something out and says the exam's available.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll also send it to email saying it's.
Are you going to upload this presentation?
This one?
Yes, today's presentation.
Oh yeah. In fact, I'll do that, as soon as possible, and so without even looking at or doing it. So it takes it about